And then I'll just do when we edit it all, we'll do the, add the sound and all that stuff later. So, and then I don't do I just do an intro right now. I don't do one that we tag on later. So, all right. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Conservation Stories. This is your host, Tillery Timmons-Sims. And once again, we're on video. This is kind of new for us, which is kind of exciting. And I am super excited about our guest today, which is Bridget Scanlon. Bridget is not from Texas. I can tell her accent gives her away. Bridget, can you give us a little bit about where you're from?
Sure. I'm originally from Southwest Ireland, but I have been in the US much longer than I lived in Ireland. I lived in Ireland for the first 20 years, and then I moved to the US to go to graduate school. So I've been here since.
And that, I guess it's like a Texas accent. It just sticks. It does not go away. Well, it's fun to listen to you talk. You came to Lubbock to the Texas Tech water meeting that we had in the fall of last year. And that was my first opportunity to hear you speak. And you mentioned there that you had a podcast, which was very exciting to me because I'm a podcast junkie. So I've been listening to that podcast now. We were talking a while ago. I was like, my podcast is like the shallow end of pretty much everything, and yours is the deep end of all the water and the science. And so sometimes I have to really think while I'm listening to your podcast because it's very informative. But I am not a scientist, but I am really grateful that you're here today.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation, and I very much enjoyed the conference in Lubbock. It was fabulous. It was great to meet all the different people working different aspects of water, and fascinating.
Yes, and I saw you then more recently at the Global Water for Food Conference in Nebraska. My first trip to that conference, really good conference.
Yes, excellent. And I went there early on in 2012, and so it was great to go back again and see how much work they've been doing, and I communicate with many of the people there. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, it was so welcoming, a great environment, easy access to the conference. It was just that whole event was really good, and the people that were attending and the speakers were really good. I was so surprised to see, I know it said global, but I was surprised to see that many international folks there, and there were a lot, and they come every time they host it.
Yes, they have a great coverage, and they work a lot in Africa and India and other places, working on water for food and irrigation and all aspects, social, economic, technical. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's what I enjoyed the most, was that holistic approach to that conference, where they were talking about all of these different things, and they're not as siloed. It seems like they're working hard to put a lot of these folks together. And
I think also they had the producers there,
Oh yes,
and it was fascinating to learn from them and the challenges that they have, water quantity, water quality, all different aspects. I truly enjoyed hearing from the producers. That was fascinating.
I love it when people remember the farmers. It's and it's happening more and more. That's one of the goals that we have, Lacey and I have for Sarah, is to make sure that we are out there at these events where farmers either, they're not going to go, they don't want to go, or they don't have time to go, or it's expensive. They, aren't going to spend the funds to go, but they need to be there, need to be represented by somebody who knows, what it's like. And that, I think that has really been the key to the partnerships that we've built over the last 18 months, is showing up. And Lacey is real salty, so she'll get up and, she's not afraid to contradict someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. And recently we were at a conference where there was a company that was, talking about how they'd given money to, all these farmers for this, stuff, climate smart stuff. And she was like, I didn't take any of that, and here's why. It wasn't worth it. and by the way, that was the government's money. Government gave you that money to give to us, and so, and people know that there's that kind of stuff going on, but they don't know who to connect with or how to connect to the farmer, or there's somebody that wants to connect them for a fee.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a farm in Ireland, so
Okay.
And my dad had a farm, but unfortunately he had 6 girls. So
Hold on just a minute. Oh, I did not. No.
So you know him personally? I wonder if you could text him and ask him to come at like 12:15.
Okay.
If you know,
I just have his email.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know we had somebody coming at noon.
I think he just scheduled this morning.
Oh, okay. That would be why. Can you get on the email and reply to him?
Yeah, I can.
Just ask him to come at 12:15. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
it's okay.
So things have been a little crazy around here. My dad's in the hospital and retiring from farming. So we're having a barn sale and they don't have a place to move to. So I've been trying to find them a place to go for this week. It's been a nightmare. Anyway. So what's going on? Okay. So I don't remember what we were talking about though.
So I was just saying that I grew up on a farm, and so I'm
Okay.
very familiar that my dad was a farmer, but unfortunately he had 6 girls, and so we sold the farm a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one sister in veterinary, but that was the closest. But she didn't take it on.
Interesting. Well, did it sell for farmland or
Yes,
it did.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the next door neighbor bought part of it,
Okay.
and so he could expand his farm. So that was very nice, and I know my dad would have been real pleased to see that he purchased part of it. So that was great.
That's great. Well, tell us, Ireland, it rains all the time. I find it interesting that you are here working in I know you're in Austin. It rains in Austin sometimes. It doesn't rain here very often. So I'm just curious how that transition happened, what that was also like for you to go from basically the Garden of Eden to the desert.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, I came over here to go to graduate school, and I've hugely benefited from all of the opportunities that I have received in the US. So I'm extremely grateful. So when I came here initially for my master's program, I went to University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
And did a master's there. Then I did a PhD at the University of Kentucky, because Kentucky has a lot of karst and Ireland has a lot of karst. And I thought I would go back to Ireland, but I met my husband in Kentucky, and so that's I stayed in the US then,
Okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
and then I came to
what is karst?
Or karst is limestone, like Edwards Aquifer limestone with
Okay.
caves and all of that sort of thing. So,
Okay. All right. I've never heard it called that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you met your husband.
Yes, and then we lived in DC for a year, and then we moved then I got a position here at the University of Texas at the Bureau of Economic Geology, and I've been working here since.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about that. I'm not familiar with what happens a lot in Austin at University of Texas, and so I'd love to hear what the goals are there.
Right. So I work at the Bureau of Economic Geology, and that's part of the Jackson School of Geosciences. And in the Jackson School was formed in the early 2000s, and it was a gift from Mr. Jackson of about $350 million. So it includes the department and the Bureau and the Institute of Geophysics, so 3 units. So the Bureau is the most applied research group, about 200 researchers. And we do a lot of work on different things. We do a lot of work on energy, oil and gas production, and now geothermal and hydrogen, and many different aspects of energy transition, and also hazards, coastal erosion, carbon capture and storage. And our environmental group, we look at water resources, we look at droughts and flood impacts, water quantity, water quality, all sorts of different things.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned a while ago that you've done some work with produced water, and that's something that's a topic that we spend a lot of time on and have made a lot of connections there. What not to make a prediction here, but you know where we are right now. I don't know if you know that New Mexico came out a few weeks ago and said, we don't know what's in the water. It can't be made safe. It's bad. And if you go to the University of New Mexico's website, there's a list of all the constituents, all the things that are in that are in the water. Texas Tech is testing for unknown unknowns. We do know what's in the water. And then we, of course, have seen, I've seen that people that it can get cleaned up. We used to have some issues with the waste disposal and things like that. What are your predictions? What are your thoughts of where we are, where we're going? Are we getting close to where, hey, we can figure out how to use this on cotton?
Right. So I have worked on produced water for many years, and we had support from ExxonMobil and other companies to look at the water issues, but we were mostly focused on the water quantity aspects and how much water was being produced. So, an average of 3 or 4 barrels of water per barrel of oil. And then because these are unconventional plays, shale plays, we can't put that water back in like we used to do with conventional reservoirs. And so managing that, and when we looked at that, we said, well, the low-hanging fruit is to reuse it for hydraulic fracturing. And I think they're doing a lot of recycling now. But when we were working on it, it was difficult to get the numbers to figure out how much of that water was being recycled. We at the Bureau, we have the Center for Injection and Seismicity Research. So we work with the Railroad Commission and with industry to try to help understand the seismicity issues and overpressuring in the subsurface, and helping them try to figure out how to manage the water. Katie Smye and JP Nicole lead that effort, and so they work with a lot of companies on those aspects. And so I think maximizing reuse for hydraulic fracturing is probably the most important thing to do initially. And then I was very impressed when I went to that conference last fall at Texas Tech at how they have advanced with the treatment knowledge and all the pilot tests and everything. So Texas Tech University leads that, and Shane Walker with the Texas Produced Water Consortium. So I used to attend the Permian Basin Water and Energy Conference every year. And so they have come a long way, and it's very impressive. And so I think they're on the right track. And I think, economics is a big aspect of it. And so the cost of disposal is increasing, and permits for disposal are more challenging to obtain. And so as the cost of disposal increase and the treatment costs decrease, I think they will ultimately be able to bring those things together. And, a lot of ways to deal with it: surface discharge of treated produced water, and also land application. So they're doing a lot of testing of that. And we've been talking to some companies about using the treated produced water to recharge some of the depleted aquifers.
Yes. So I'm curious. Have you ever worked on the getting those approvals? Like, I'm wondering what it's going to be like, the difficulty, and I don't know that anybody really can predict. Now we have a change in the EPA, like going through that process of getting approval so that people can be confident that it's safe for this water to be put back into it's to be put back, to be used, to be cleaned, and not just what we have right now, which, to kind of clarify, we're putting this water back down into the holes, to say it's, unscientifically, in the down underneath the ground. It's being put back in there. That's the pressure that's building up. And I've heard that there are like places where the ground has risen 6 inches because there's so much pressure. And that's what's creating the earthquakes that we're hearing about in Midland and, all these different places in that Permian Basin area and
Right.
other places.
Right, right. So I think they've made huge advances in the treatment, and so they're really progressing very rapidly on that aspect. And again, Texas Tech has been doing a lot of that work. And I think what we were thinking about is that they could apply that water. I mean, the land application is one aspect, and Texas Tech is working on that. But we're looking at applying that treated water in spreading basins to recharge the aquifer. So then that water would have time to equilibrate with the sediments in the soils, and then eventually reach the aquifer and recharge the aquifer. So it wouldn't be injected directly into the aquifer, and then so there could be contaminant removal, or organics could degrade in the soils and en route to the aquifer. So they could, if there was anything left in it, then I think it should be safe.
It'd be filtered out. So on that note, you've done work on recharge in our region, the Ogallala, and we've wondered about in that idea, can we put this in playas as storage and use that for some recharge? You're talking about years, I know, but where are you, if not playas, how do we do that?
So we're looking at the Pecos Valley aquifer further to the southwest, and we are looking at suitable soil zones that would have high permeability and allow the water to move through, and not clay soils, but high permeability soils. But so we did a lot of work on playas way back. And we were doing that at the Pantex site near Amarillo and all that vicinity. And, in the 60s or whatever, they thought playas were evaporation ponds. And then, we realized that they were actually recharging. But the clays in the playas can crack when they're dry and stuff like that. So that could be a fairly rapid pathway for and even though you'd think there are a zillion playas around, but they only occupy 1% of the land surface. So it may be better to put it in spreading basins. And for example, Arizona, the active management areas, they have a lot of these spreading basins where they recharge the groundwater with the Colorado River water. And also in California, they have a lot of spreading basins. So it gives it an opportunity to equilibrate with the soils and the sediments before reaching the aquifer.
So, of course, where we are, we're in Lubbock, and in our area, and then the Southern High Plains, before you get into the Permian Basin, is, really drying up. And we'd love to find a way to utilize that water. I know from just the rough numbers that I've seen, it's about what's being produced right now would like cover about a quarter of what we use for irrigation. So, it's not enough, but it's something that we could use, and I know that there's, talk about what's the economics. And just, by the way, we have a page on our website that has that information that says, hey, this is what you need for cotton. This is kind of what the economics are, and that kind of stuff for people to look at and refer to, because that's kind of the number one question we have is, how much money will farmers pay for it? And the answer is not much.
Because we won't pay that, we won't pay much for the cotton or for food.
There's no way you can't. If we have to add another, input cost, we're already losing money. So it's not possible. But like you said, the economics are changing quickly on the produced water. So tell us, I grew up, when I thought about, and I learned about the Ogallala aquifer, and I never heard anyone talk about it when I was young. We just had water, and we just had a lot of water, and we just used a lot of water. We're still, I can remember, moving pipe. We row watered some, not a whole lot where we were, but a lot of pipe. And then of course we went to pivots during my childhood. And I can remember, we'd fill up a big, collection tank, and we'd swim in that in the summer, and now there's, most of those tanks are they're not even gone. I can't even remember the last time I've seen one because there's just not enough water and it's inefficient, way to use the water. But when did this recognition of the aquifer, like I just saw it as a big lake. And that's how it was explained to me. And so even as a young adult, that is what I pictured in my mind, was that there's this big, huge hole, massive hole, and it's just a huge like lake or ocean almost of water. And now, of course, I know it's not that simple. How did this change come about? It sounds like to me you were there when the reality of what that was like and what was going on with the playas happened.
Right. Well, I guess, it's gradual. People realize that, they have to drill deeper wells or their wells go dry. And so they can see the declining water levels. And, this perception that we have oceans of water. I mean, way back when in the early mid 1900s, oftentimes, like the city of Dallas or whatever, they had water, artesian water, flowing at the surface, also in Californian regions. So of course you would have the perception that it's an endless supply, and then gradually you can see as you depressurize those confined aquifers, or as the water levels have declined, the reality sinks in that it's not limitless. So I think, the last several decades, people realizing, but I thought one of the good things about the conference last fall was the presentation by the producer who was doing horticulture on the 20 acres.
Yeah, Leighton.
And then selling those goods to the nearby towns and stuff. I think that is the real future for food production. We're oftentimes concerned about food production, but a lot of the irrigation in the Southwest US is used for alfalfa and things like that. So I think we'll gradually see a transition. And I was extremely impressed with his model.
Yes, in fact, we just last month recorded an update with him. So he was actually, I think, the second or third of podcast that we did was with Leighton, and he's just expanding all the time. When we visited with him last month, he has planted strawberries, and he said, I don't think that you could plant too many strawberries.
Right.
Like, they're great for here, they grow great here in our area, and people love them. And so, he not only has he been pioneering what he's doing and trying, he's also extremely generous, and I so appreciate that, because he's an open book on the economics, on how to do it. Like it, and I told him, I was like, I appreciate it. And he said, listen, there is plenty to go around. Like, this is something that, people need to be looking at. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and we were working recently with the Huffington Foundation, and they have a similar type of farming situation in Colorado, horticulture and intensive, and so I think this is going to be a great way to provide food for local towns and all of that sort of thing. So, and it's wonderful that Leighton is so generous with his knowledge and expertise and know-how. And we need to spread that. And I would love to talk to him again, because I was really interested in learning more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll connect you, because he'd be a great guest for your podcast.
Yes.
He would be. So do you feel like when you look at the situation of our water where we are, and, if you go the further south you go, right, there's less and less playas. So I'm from Tillery County. And if you look at Tillery County's playas and like Floyd County has like, I think 1,600, and I don't know how many are in Tillery County, but nowhere near that amount. And so the further you go, the less there is of, and playas aren't a quick recharge, but they're faster than just nothing.
Right. Well, the thing is, the playas are found in the areas where the soils are more clay rich. And so as you go further south, then you get sandier and sandier soils. So the sandy soils recharge better than the clay. So the only place you have the recharge in the clay soils is in the playas.
Okay. Okay.
And
I hadn't
so,
thought about that. Okay. Because
yeah,
I've kind of been like feeling sorry for us over down here, but actually, where I grew up, I know the people that are farming the land that I grew up on, and there's no water there. I mean, I remember my dad growing corn. I remember, you know, 8 or 12-inch pipe with gushing water,
right,
and now it's dry land, and I don't know, even what with Leighton's doing, like the water requirements, if there's even enough water for something like that, I don't even know.
right, right. Well, I think, it was nice to see at the conference also that USDA had programs to help farmers transition from irrigation to dry land. And so,
Yes, and there are those programs that are out there, and they're so rarely used because they don't. What I wish we could get USDA to understand is they need to be taking more of a place base on those. Like even in Texas, if you create a rule for the entire state, it's going to be great in one area or maybe two, but and the economics of what they're offering just doesn't. It's not enough incentive for someone to switch over, and you have to switch over before it gets so bad, so it's just not appealing. Like I could grow this crop or I could get this little bit, so it just,
right,
the economics don't work out.
right,
They're just
Well,
not there.
I think that gets to the point, like we sometimes say one size fits all, but it fits
Yes.
nobody.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and I'm hoping that there'll be more of that. I'd love to see, as they're looking at, shaking things up on the federal side. I'd love for them to, hey, let's just split this up and like bring it more down to the local level, and have some good oversight for it, of course. But people at the
Right,
local level know much more about what they need, and I think
right.
there was a lot of intention for that. But well, so when you think about the future, when you came here in the 60s and you saw, if you were, up here where we are, you saw this, just the use of we have done this without thinking. And even then when we became aware in the 90s, there's, everybody knows this is going away. And Robert Mace was on several months ago, and he said he thought maybe we had 2 decades left of irrigation water. And how do you have any suggestions of someone that I think that's an expert that knows, like, when it's gone, it's gone?
Well, I mean, it's not just the technical aspects, and Robert and I are, kind of more technical people, but I mean, there's so much social and economic aspects with it, and and that's why the USDA program was sort of appealing to me to help the farmers transition, and so the age of the farmers, whether their kids are in farming, if there's an incentive for them to do it more sustainably and lengthen the lifespan of the farm. There's so many different factors involved. If the kids are not in farming, maybe this is their last shot, and then they just say, use as much as they may not be considering the long term. So it's a very complicated issue. And it's happening everywhere, Arizona, California, all of these different places. California has the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And so they would be required to use groundwater more sustainably and they have 20 years to develop those plans. It's already like 10 years in, so that was passed in 2014. Now it's 20.
Yes, I was in California a couple of years ago on an ag tour, and Farm Bureau there said that they anticipated the loss of 1 million farm acres due to that that law. And that's I don't know. I'm not sure that consumers are aware. There's so much more we want to buy in America. If consumers aren't aware of what's happening,
Right.
how do we raising awareness? It's not just ag. We're aware of it all the time, but I just don't think consumers are aware of how this will impact. And you guys, are you the name of your organization is like the economic, but it doesn't sound like that's what that means.
The Bureau of Economic Geology has been around for more than 100 years. It's one of the oldest research units within the university, and so the name is
okay. It's old-fashioned.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, we have some economists, but not that many, and but we're always cognizant of economic impacts because it's a big driver on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so. You say, of consumers, but I mean, California, it's the economics for the producers also. So California moved a lot to almonds and nut trees and things like that with a big water demand and one that they could not shut off during a drought because it's not an annual crop, it's perennial. And so, but the almonds that they develop supply a lot more regions than just.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's so tell us what does your day-to-day look like? What are you working on now? Do you have a something you're studying currently?
Right. So we are a soft money organization, the Bureau of Economic Geology. So we get project funds from federal agencies or states or state agencies. And so Department of Energy, EPA, or Texas Water Development Board or Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, a lot of different sources, and also from industry as Exxon and other companies, and then we have consortia with industry. So right now, today, I'm finishing up a report for the Department of Energy on critical minerals because that's I'm a hydrologist, but during COVID, we were trying to get other sources of funding, and that was a good program. So we're looking at rare earth elements and other critical minerals in coal and coal ash and other feedstocks to produce rare earths for energy transition. So and then I'm also doing some work on municipal water supplies for the Texas Water Development Board. How well can we predict, how well have they been doing with predicting population growth and municipal water demands over the past 20 years?
Oh, that's very important to know.
Right.
Yeah. That information can really help us understand how to move forward.
Right.
Do we keep doing things the way we have, or do we need to change things up? That's really great to know.
Right. And, we both do podcasts. And so I started the Water Resources podcast a few years ago. And I really enjoy doing them. I learned so much from them. And I spoke with Todd Vockler recently about the water markets in Texas. And I was very impressed, in the Rio Grande and in San Antonio region, how much water markets were able to help with water management. I mean, he mentioned, I think that San Antonio region, San Antonio Water Systems pays about $50 per acre for farmers who participate in the program. And then if it's a drought year, then it goes up to $250 an acre so that they wouldn't grow their crops, irrigate their crops during a drought year. So I thought
really, wow, that's so interesting. Okay. Yeah, that can really help. That's so fascinating. Right. Yeah, I think I must have missed this one because I don't remember that at all. And I would definitely remember that.
It's not been released yet. It's not released.
Oh, okay, that's it. Okay. Well, this has been so interesting. I'd love to have you back on, and maybe we can even, like, more than this broad umbrella, cover something maybe a little more specific about some specific questions that that we hear or that we have as we, travel around the state, and, even maybe even specific projects that we are looking at that's, how can trialing some of this produced water on some of these crops, and I know that there's a little bit of that happening right now, and there's a couple of places where it's happened on some pivots and some cotton down in the Midland Odessa area. So I'd love to see it happen a little bit more here. That would be great. Or even, a way to maybe use some of this water in these communities that are setting dotted across the Permian Basin. How can we use it for municipalities? Even if it's not, although I've seen where it can become, meet safe drinking water standards. Even if people are nervous about that, then it's used for, watering lawns or, things like that, but I do believe that we can get this to a safe level.
Right,
So,
right. And I would love to see what they're doing with the horticulture, those intensive. I would love to see that expand and provide food, for local
yes,
communities. I think that would be.
yes. And that would be, I was thinking the other day about Leighton, and I thought it'd be really great if you could take the best grocery store in the United States, H-E-B. They have been awarded and well deserving. And they are so focused on, they're so good about buying Texas products. Like, I wonder if we could even start getting those partnerships built on the, as they're moving towards the west side of the state, where we can be doing some more local,
right, right.
Straight to market. That'd be great.
Well, I'm very impressed with what you're doing with your program, Sarah Conservation, and working, trying to help farmers and be a bridge with all of the issues that are going on these days. And so it's wonderful that you're out there talking to all of the different people and then going to meetings and everything and parlaying the knowledge that you're gaining from those to the farmers. That's wonderful.
I appreciate that. Farmers and just consumers, people that live in town, that wanting them to understand, that's our whole focus. Is we're just kind of going to gather it and then pass it along and let people make the decisions and to see that the opportunities are there. And I really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, and I value that you were willing to give us your time. Thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of a new home country.
Thank you. It's lovely to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, friends, for listening in to another episode of Conservation Stories. We are a podcast, of course, hosted by Sarah, the Sandhills Area Research Association. Sarah Conservation is there, like we said, to bring you information. And if we can be of help, if you like this podcast, share it with your friends. And we will see you again soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Bridget.
Bye. Later.
Okay. Bye-bye.